This is how the Fifine AM8 sounds in XLR mode without any effects. And this is how the Fifine AM8 could sound with effects. And we're achieving this with a Dbx 286s channel strip. Yes, it is about $199, but for this sound, isn't it worth it? High-end channel strips can cost up to $4,000. And by the way, you do need an audio interface to go with it because the Dbx itself is not an audio interface. And for this video, we're using the PreSonus Quantum ES2, which connects to my Dbx using this TRS connector over here, plugged into this hole, the line-in port of your audio interface's combo jack. Most audio interfaces should have that. Unfortunately, the Focusrite Vocaster 2 does not have a line in. As you can see, it only has 3 holes for the 3 pins, but not the bigger hole in the middle. But if you got a Vocaster, you already have a lot of the features that the Dbx has anyway, so you're fine. All right, let's set this thing up. First things first, we want to set up the mic preamp gain. The goal here is to make sure that the first green light is always lighting up, that the second light is lighting up often, and if you hit the yellow light once in a while, or is that orange? Yeah, you can hit the orange light once in a while, as long as you are not hitting the red light, which says clip, you are fine. Julian Krause has a much more in-depth method of achieving this, so if you want to check out his method, check out the links in the description. The 48 volts phantom power is for powering condenser mics, but because the AM8 is a dynamic mic, it does not need it. The 80 Hz high-pass filter cleans up your muddy low-end audio. So if you have any rumble, any hums, any plosives even in your audio, then this is a great button to press. So let's press that right here. There we go. Check this out. Pesky P's perpetuate problematic plosives. Not a lot of plosives. Let's turn it off. Pesky P's, yeah. Let's not. Pesky P's. Pesky P's. Yeah, it kind of softens the blow a bit. But by the way, if you really know what you're doing in terms of mic placement, and if you have a really deep voice that goes up to below 80 Hertz, and you should know if your voice does that, then you have permission to keep this off because some of you might want to hear that low-end warmth. Now you got your process bypass button, which is essentially your before and after switch. What that means is if you turn this on with the red light visible, all of your effects are turned off. But right now we don't have any effects, so it's not really helpful. So we can just turn it off for now, and we can move on to the compressor, which is really fun. So the compressor has 2 settings. It's got the drive setting and the density setting. The drive setting does 2 things to your voice. So it squishes your waveforms or compresses them, and then it adds a bit more gain, an even amount of gain in post. So you are getting not just even audio, but even and loud audio. So the more you raise this, the more you are actually boosting your volume or perceived loudness. And generally, you do not want to go past the 3 bulbs. Just a rule of thumb. I like setting my drive to 3. The density setting controls how fast the compressor is released. So a lower setting on the knob, or when it's turned all the way left, shows that the setting is a slow release. So it releases that compressor ever so slowly. Now if you drive that density setting up, the compressor is releasing really fast, so it compresses, it releases, it compresses, and it releases, keeping more of the natural dynamics of your voice. So the tendency is, the higher this is, the more articulate your voice, and the lower this is, the smoother your voice is. So some people like to bring their density down to 3 o'clock, but I do like to have mine at around 7.5, just like Julian Krause. Now moving on to the De-esser. This is a pretty useful tool, especially for the AM8 if you're finding that your S's are sound really annoying and shrill. And if you say sizzling sibilance sends sharp sounds and it sounds sharp to your ears, this is the place to tone that down. So I have discovered for myself that my problem frequency is around 6 kilohertz, which is between 4 and 8. So as I turn this knob, nothing is actually happening to the sound still because we're just targeting a frequency. But the threshold knob is what controls the amount of reduction. So here my S's. Ooh. Let me drop that all the way. And I'm going to gradually turn it up. Can you hear that? Sizzling sibilance sends sharp sounds. Where did the S go? It's practically gone. So you don't want to turn that up all the way. You still want to hear your S's. Now, the AM8 is known for boosting its upper frequencies a bit, so I would definitely use my ears here and experiment a bit and do a bit of trial and error. Don't go crazy with it. For my voice on the AM8, I like to go up 4 notches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sizzling sibilance. Sizzling sibilance. Let me drop that completely. Sizzling sibilance. Actually, let's make it 5 or 6 notches. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sizzling sibilance sends sharp sounds. Yeah, I quite like that. There's actually a chance I might be missing the actual sibilant frequency. So you could actually kind of play this Minesweeper thing where you do a long S and keep turning the knob. Sizzling sibilance sends sharp sounds. Yeah, 6K sounds about right. And all of this brings us to the enhancer section, which is going to blow your mind. The enhancer has 2 EQ settings. You got LF for low frequency detail and HF for high frequency detail. But these aren't just static boosts. The low frequency detail knob is mind-blowing. Listen to my voice as I increase the low frequencies. Can you hear this? Does my voice sound low yet? Hello. Hello, this is low frequency detail. 2 things are actually going on as I increase this knob. One, it is boosting the low frequencies at 80 Hz. But usually by raising the low frequencies, you might potentially bring up some muddiness or boominess along with it. So the cool thing about LF detail is it's boosting that 80 Hz frequency region, but it's also cutting at around 250 Hertz, or somewhere in the low mids, which could introduce muddiness or potential boxiness. So normally when you raise your bass by this much, your audio is going to sound huge, but muffled. This does not sound that way, at least to my ear. For the AM8, I'm totally fine with setting LF detail to 3.5 or 4, especially if I am speaking from a distance. You know, normally we kind of have to eat the mic, get really close to get that low frequency. But with LF detail, we can step back a bit and really boost that and get some low frequency in there, even at a distance. Let me raise my gain a bit more. Check, check, check. Yeah, I kind of like being able to speak from a distance too. Now we have HF detail or high frequency detail. You know how with a De-esser, we kind of had to manually select the target frequency? Well, with HF detail, we don't have to do that because this isn't a static boost. It is a spectral or algorithmic boost. As we are speaking to the signal and as we raise the HF detail knob, it adjusts and determines just the right amount of high frequency boost. As we raise HF detail and speak into the mic, the Dbx is trying to figure out the proper amount of high frequency boost to give the signal. It's going to try its very best to boost the highs, increase the shimmer, the articulation, the air, make an otherwise dull-sounding mic more lively, all without introducing sibilance or harshness. Now that does sound too good to be true, but that's what it says in the manual. But I love how beginner-friendly these 2 knobs are. You practically can't go wrong with these. Now the thing with the Fifine AM8 is that it's already articulate to begin with, so I'm gonna drop this. And honestly, this actually sounds okay, but maybe I'll give it a couple of notches just for that condenser-like clarity. All right, how does this sound? Honestly, once you get to the enhancer, it becomes very subjective territory. But so far, I am liking this sound. Now we get to the expander/gate, which is essentially noise reduction, but it only happens between your spoken words, like over here. If this is you talking and there's like a bit of silence, you not talking over here, and then you're talking over here, yeah, this space in between, that is when the expander gate kicks in. But while you are talking, you're not actually getting any noise reduction. So it kind of creates a fake sense of how quiet your room is. But hey, it works. So there are 2 controls for the expander/gate. The first is the threshold, and that determines when the expander gate kicks in, and the ratio determines the intensity of the noise reduction. So as with Julian Krause's recommendation, it's great to keep the ratio between 1.5 and 2. But if your background is really noisy, you can go all the way up to 2, but try not to go past that. Now, Julian Krause has a method for setting the threshold. First, you want to see these two bulbs here. When the bulb is green, the gate is open and letting your voice through. And when it is red, it is kicking in and pushing the signal down. So the first thing you want to do is to stay silent so that the mic only picks up the room ambience. From there, gradually turn up the threshold knob until the gate turns red. And once it is red, you want to crank this up by 4 more notches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Magic. And the last setting is output. It's kind of like a final volume knob, so to speak, if you want to make your signal a little bit weaker or a little bit louder. But in general, it's just better to keep it as is. Set to 0. Massive thanks again for Julian Krause for creating the original Dbx 286s setup video. This is just my personal spin on it with the Fifine AM8. And I also want to thank the members of this channel. You have made this video possible. And special thanks to these awesome people. Thank you. And if you want to watch more mic reviews, audio interface reviews, tech tutorials, maybe voice acting videos, then make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe because every subscriber counts. And if you like this video, make sure to check out this one.